you cry. Brother, there's far too many of you die. You know we got to find a way to bring some loving. Yeah. Father, we don't need you escapade. Oh, not answer for only love can conquer. You know we got to find a way to bring some loving. Oh, yeah. Take it sight, punish me with brutality. Talk to me, only so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. Ooh, come on. Woo. Ah, baby. Everybody thinks we're wrong. They do. Mama, who are they to judge us? Simply cause our hair is long. People, you know, we've got to find a way to bring some understanding. Yes, yes. Think it nice, think it sight. People don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me, so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Wanna know what's going on? All right. Oh, baby. What's going on? Wanna know, I want to know, baby. What's going on? I wanna know what's going on, baby. Yes, I wanna know what's going on, people. Oh, what's going on, brother? Tell me, yeah, what's going on? All right. Yeah. Bring it down a little bit. Yeah. A little bit. Right there. Here we go. Here we go. Hey, baby, what you know? I'm just getting back, but you knew I would. Boys, hey, when will it end? When will people start getting together again? Things will never get better. The newspaper read. What else is new, my friend? Besides what I read, can't find no work, can't find no job, my friend. Money is tighter than it's ever been. Hey man, I just don't understand what's going on across this land. Ah, what's happening, brother? Hey, what's happening? I wanna know, I wanna know. Things still get down where we used to go in days. Now I'm up when I'm finished. Do you think they haven't changed? And tell me, friend, how in the world have you been? Tell me what's out. I want to know what's in. Woo! What's the deal? What's the deal, man? What's happening? What's happening, brother? What's happening? What's happening, brother? I want to know what's happening. What's happening, my man? Been gone a long, long time. Now I'm back on the scene. What's happening, brother? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening, brother? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
All right, and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Conrad. I'm your host, Reverend Conrad Tillard, and of course, if you're listening to Conversations with Conrad, and you tuned in, you are listening to Conversations with Conrad. I used to say, if it were Tuesday, if it were Friday, those are the days that I appeared on terrestrial radio. But again, coming to you now in the podcast format, I forget that I'm coming to you anytime, and you can listen anytime. And that's the great thing about it. I hope you will tell people about this program. I hope you will spread the word. Call a relative, call a friend. You know, that's my tagline. Call a relative, call a friend, and let them know. I got that from a great minister that used to say that back when I was coming up. And it touched me so much. It's been with me ever since. When I was a student at the University of Pennsylvania and I had meetings, I would tell the students, call a relative, call a friend, trying to get the turnout, increasing the turnout. Well, today is a dreary day in the New York metropolitan area. And wherever you are, I hope you're in and dry. It's 46 degrees in the tri-state area, New York City. And so I've got a lot to talk to you about. So cool down and warm up and just relax. I want to cover a number of things today. But before I do that, I want to impress upon you the importance of hitting the like button. Hit the like button, subscribe, and then do me a favor, help me get subscribers as I try to build this channel, build this new Black perspective. You see, what you get on Conversations with Conrad is a new perspective. And again, I'm very, very proud of the fact that you can't go to other stations and get this perspective. It's impossible. You can't find this anywhere else. You cannot go to CNN. You cannot go to the standard networks and get this perspective. It's just impossible, because what you will get in those instances is what I call the left wing drivel. But on Conversations with Conrad, we come to you not from the right, but nor do we come to you from the left. We come to you from a common sense perspective. And we are helping to fashion, helping to form, helping to build a consensus and build an idea of a new blackness. It is my view that we have gotten away from black politics. We've gotten away from black thought. We have our intellectuals have been captured by progressivism, which is just a sort of avant-garde European and neoliberal ideology that wholly abandons Black people's ability to think through their problems, their issues, and to speak for ourselves. I see Brother E. Props has joined. E. Props, good to see you, my brother. We need to have a conversation. Yes, we will. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk with you. And so we need a new Black politics. You know, we don't have a Black politic like we had in the 70s. We don't have a Black politic like we had in the 80s. We don't have a Black politic like we had in the 90s. And so until our elected officials realize that you can't take your lead from Bernie Sanders, can't take your lead from AOC, you cannot be led by these folks. They don't come from our community. They have different concerns, different issues. I didn't say you couldn't collaborate with them. Jesse Jackson was endorsed by Bernie Sanders, but he wasn't following him, at least not in 1984. And so we've got to have Black politicians that think, what are the issues facing Black people? What are the concerns? And so that's what the new Black politic is. And, you know, we will not mouth any dogma. We'll not mouth the dogma of the left nor the right. I have a critique of some of those on the right. Black, I think they offer some great things, and I'm not going to castigate them. I'm never going to try to demean them like I see people on the left doing, people like Roland Martin trying to bully and humiliate people. I'm not going to do that, because to me, there's no difference between someone standing on the right, working within the Republican Party or conservative circles, and someone in the Black community standing on the left, working within the Democratic Party. Hopefully, both are working for the interest of African American people. One is not more down, one is not more relevant, one is not doing the people's work more than the other. In order for me to assume that, I would have to assume that the parties are for the people. And my experience has been that they're not. But they can be, to the extent that you have people in both parties advocating for your agenda. And so I don't castigate Black people on the right. I want them to be there. But you got to do more than just castigate Black people. You have to do more than just put down Black people. You've got to do more than just say what's wrong with Black people, okay? True, we got some stuff wrong with us. There's no question about it. And we do need folks who will call out some of the things that we are facing. I understand that, okay? But what I also understand is that we as Black people have got to continue to build political alliances in both places. That's extremely important. And so that's part of the new Black. That's going to be a new article of faith in the new Black, that we don't stand all on one side of the table, the left side of the table, and let the table topple over. We don't stand all on one side and castigate people, those Uncle Toms, those coons. We don't do that. That's unintelligent. What we do is we huddle. Okay, 60 or 70% of you go over there to the left, about 30, 35, maybe 40% of you go over to the right. You advocate for this. This is our agenda, okay? This is what we need, all right? You take this over there, you take this over there. That's what other folks do, and that's what Black people need to start doing. And I've decided that if it's one of the last things I teach, and if it takes 20 years to do it, I am going to help Black people to understand that one of the first articles of the New Black is to stop thinking you're achieving something by giving 90% of your vote to one party. I'm sorry, my dear sisters, I love you. You're wonderful. Boy, when you get in someone's corner, you're in it. But I want to disabuse you of this notion. You didn't save democracy, and you can't save anything by voting 90% for one party. You're going to end up like Angela Rye. You're going to end up broken and disrespected, because when you let one party know, we ain't going nowhere, we will be here. When you let these political parties know that your support is solid and that there is no possibility that it can waver, then you have done yourself a disservice. Now, I didn't say do that with your man. You know, that's what you're supposed to do at home. Baby, I'm here. I ain't going nowhere, okay? But I didn't say don't do it in your church. This is my church. I'm not going to church hop. I love this church. This is where I intend to be. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's the way you're supposed to be in terms of your religion. But you're not supposed to take that kind of posture when it comes to politics, because that locks you in. And in politics, you can't afford to be locked in. When the Democrats considered opening up a convention, as many of them, like Clinton wanted and Obama, that was the time for Black women to say, we carried you, and if you go outside of Kamala, we are bolting, okay? All right? You got to be willing to say that sometimes, okay? And when you don't get what you want, that's when you have the right to say, I'm going looking somewhere else. And that's basically what Black men did, okay? They had been ignored, disrespected. The agenda of the Democrats just further and further alienated them. And as Malcolm used to say, when someone would come and try to liberate the slaves and say, we're going away from here tonight, somebody would invariably say, just like many of you are saying from the Democratic Party, where you going to go that's better than here? Where you going to get a better meal than here? Where you going to get better clothes? Where you going to get better treatment than this massa over here? And Malcolm would say, the response of the slave that was looking to be free would be any place is better than here. And sometimes that's just the way it is. Black men decided to vote by their feet, and we don't know what the Republican administration will bring. But what we do know is that things had gotten so bad on the Democratic Party that it was time for us to make a move. And a number of Black men did, Latino men did as well. So that's part of the New Black, to have a political flexibility, political agility, where you can actually tell these parties and mean it, that you will not have our support this time. One of the things I do want to, because today I'm going to dedicate to Russell Simmons, P. Diddy, and the documentary on Shyne, but a few political things I want to cover before we get to it. And one of the things I want to play for you right now. This is an abomination, and this is why you don't slavishly give your life to one party with no flexibility. Let me play this for you, and I hope that this will make everyone, at least on some level, that supported Joe Biden, ultimately really ashamed.
President Biden facing pushback from both sides after commuting the sentence of a former Pennsylvania judge, Michael Conahan, who was at the center of the Kids for Cash scandal. and convicted of being paid off to lock up juveniles. The move upsetting many across the state, including Governor Josh Shapiro.
I do feel strongly that President Biden got it absolutely wrong. This was not only a black eye on the community, the Kids for Cash scandal, but it also affected families in really deep and profound and sad ways.
Pittsburgh-based columnist and Washington Examiner national political reporter Selena Zito joins us now. Selena, good morning to you. This is a particularly ugly scandal there in Pennsylvania. Now, President Biden, and I think the largest day of clemencies ever granted 1,500 sentences commuted. This included this judge that was funneling juveniles to private prisons in exchange for kickback money. Why would Biden do this? I mean, you can hear Shapiro there asking basically the same question. Why?
Yeah, that was a profound scandal in our state. It cut across the whole state. It happened in Biden's backyard. He often liked to talk about how he was from Scranton and he had Scranton roots. And I just don't understand this decision. I mean, this had a devastating impact on families. There was one young man who was a wrestler, and anybody knows anything about Pennsylvania, wrestling is the top sport over football. And, he was just got into this like minor drug paraphernalia charge, sent off to this private prison, which this judge received kickbacks from, and he was never the same. He missed his senior year of high school. That sort of aspirational things that you want as a 17-year-old. And with a couple of years, he committed suicide. I mean, this was devastating in our state. That he was let out is just vulgar. I can't think of a better word other than vulgar.
It just leaves that open question, though. What's going on? Like, why, Biden? Meanwhile, Selena, you wrote this recently, but the Trump administration says exactly right. So that you wrote this headline back in January. Trump's track to victory began when train derailed. So, and now the Trump administration, incoming, at least Stephen Chung, who's the incoming communications coordinator, said 100%.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. You heard the report. It was a very, very disappointing pardon in terms of President Biden deciding to pardon this judge that had been sent to private prisons. Now, I'm going to say this, and I really mean this. Black, again, whatever the politics were in 2020, there was so much hatred for Donald Trump that people just completely forgot the crime bill that Biden championed back in 1996, working with Newt Gingrich, Bill Clinton, and others. People forgot that, or they were willing to forgive it. They totally forgot Biden's history of working with segregationists because they wanted to get rid of Trump. That is ultimately the most important thing. But when you look at this case where Joe Biden, now keep in mind, young people's lives were destroyed as a result of this. One young man, I listened to his mother the other day, he committed suicide as a result of this. And for Joe Biden to pardon this judge, it is just criminal. And see, this is the reason why Black people in politics, you don't have permanent friends. You don't have permanent enemies. You only have permanent interest. And so when Biden does this, it should help you understand that there's no spiritual connection between a party or a political candidate. It's transactional. This is a complete a black eye for the Biden administration. I mean, one of many. Okay. You know, I talked last week. I didn't really bang him for pardoning his son. I banged him for saying he wouldn't. Okay. I banged the media for whitewashing and sanitizing the story about his son before the election. But this is almost unforgivable, especially when you consider the fact that Marilyn Mosby is sitting in Maryland. She has not been pardoned by Biden. Jesse Jackson Jr. and Sandy Jackson are sitting in Chicago, and they have not been pardoned. But I'm saying almost that unless you're talking about a mass murderer, unless you're talking about a cannibal, and I would put him on the same level as a child rapist. This 17-year sentence that was just wiped away by Judge Michael Conahan in Pennsylvania is something that I think should be a part of Biden's everlasting legacy. This is disgraceful. As I said, lastly on that point, be a child murderer, child rapist are the only other types of people and categories of crime. And I don't say they're worse than what this judge did. They're on the same level, like a slave trader, in order to fill up a private prison that he was getting a kickback from. I think it was $2 million. He literally sentenced children to jail, destroyed their future and their lives, where many of them probably were beat up, probably were raped. And so his crimes are certainly on par with a child rapist, a child murderer, a mass murderer, and there's no way. And someone ought to investigate the family ties. Someone ought to investigate. There's no way that a man like Joe Biden that spent most of his life since 1972 in politics would literally throw his reputation away on a scoundrel like this, unless there's and I don't know what it is, but I said it needs to be investigated. And so I do want to talk about that. The other thing I want to talk about politically before I move on, last night, Ingrid Martin, the chief of staff of Mayor Eric Adams, and many of us in the New York area, we know our sister Ingrid Lewis Martin, and I pray for Ingrid, and as she moves into retirement. She's been with the mayor for many years, and his right hand, and she retired last night. News reports are that they are convening a grand jury. She may or may not be indicted, but sometimes you can't help folks, but what you can do is pray for folks. And what I would say to people in New York City is don't count the mayor out yet. Don't count him out. I know it looks tough, but don't count him out. And one of the things that I think is going to buttress Mayor Adams and really perhaps allow him to shock conventional thinking and move back to Gracie Mansion for a second term is that when you see the field of people that will be assembling, when you see what the competition is, the people in New York will recoil, see the amateur hour, when they see the ideologues who step forth, and we look at the city now, and we look at the potential and what the city could end up being under these intellectual lightweights and political ideologues. They're going to step forth with left-leaning candidates, and they're going to be talking about abolish the police. They're going to be talking about abolish the borders. And instead of having what we have now, a mayor who at least has the right idea, but is fighting against a very progressive city council, a very progressive state legislature in which Democrats control everything, And then you're going to think about the specter and consider the specter of a progressive in Gracie Mansion and a progressive city council. And New Yorkers, in my view, at that point, will start saying, well, you know, Adams is not bad. I think we need to stick with Adams one more term. I mean, it really is an ideological a choice. You know, either we're going to have order in the streets, either we're going to build housing, either we're going to have an attitude and an idea that it is not okay to go into the CVS and take out half the merchandise. Either we're going to think and have the idea that for some crimes, you're going to go to jail, you're going to stay in jail, and if it was up to me, you'd be under the jail. And you're not going to keep getting out. You're not going to keep committing crimes. You're not going to take advantage of a loophole. And if you get out, if you get arrested 50 times because there's no cash bail, at some point there needs to be a revision of that law to say if you get arrested again, you're going to sit this time if you don't have bail. Okay, that's just common sense. Okay, but again, those in the state legislature that I've talked to that support this say there's no evidence that shows that if you have a law that says there's no cash bail, that criminals will not take advantage of that and crime will not go up. And again, it's not most of the citizens. It is a hardcore group of hardened criminals. And listen, I'm a minister. I believe in reformation. I believe in repentance. I believe in sanctification. I've worked in the streets and worked with people who are on drugs, worked with some of the worst people in society. And I've seen people make a real change in their life. I know it's possible, but I also spending years and years and years in the streets and growing up in the streets and having a good dose of common sense. I know that there are some inveterate criminals. I know that there are some folk that won't do right. If you put them at the gates of heaven, they wouldn't do right. And that's what the progressive, the bleeding heart, just won't accept. They won't accept that. First of all, because they don't have common sense. Secondly, because many of them have just moved to urban communities, and they're on a movement high, so that they have to learn. I remember when I was running. Unfortunately, Bedford-Stuyvesant has a very progressive state senator. He won during COVID, and it's about 30% of the progressive vote, a progressive white vote, and apathy on the part of blacks. And he's won 2 terms. But I never will forget I was running, and I ran into this fella, and I was trying to get his vote, saying what I would do to represent him. And he asked me what I thought about jails. And I said, well, you know, I've been to a lot of them, spent a lot of time in jails, ministering to people. They're not very nice places, but they are absolutely necessary. And he said, I don't believe that people should be in cages. And I said, oh, okay. All right. I said, well, if someone robbed you, do you think they should go to jail? He said, no, because that's only a material thing. I said, so what if someone broke in your house, raped your woman, knocked you over the head? Do you think that they should go to jail? And he said, no. I said, well, what would you do? He said, I'd be too busy ministering to me and my wife. And I just walked away. And I looked down and I just walked away. And he yelled out to me. He said, you think I'm crazy, don't you? And I said, yes, I do. I said, yes, I do. He said, but hey, I'm a voter. I said, I want to win, but I don't have to win unanimously, okay? and rather than pander to a fool like you, and try to get your vote, I'll just move on. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've not been able to be elected, because I don't suffer fools very easily. And I'm not going to listen to some privileged young white cat that just moved into Bedford-Stuyvesant with an unrealistic view. And I'm just not going to listen to that. I don't have the time, the tolerance. If I was perhaps if I were in a Montessori school or a Head Start program, or if I was in a elementary school, I might have the patience to take time with young people and talk about those things. But a fully grown adult male, that if someone raped them and broke into their house, they still don't believe someone should go to prison. But those are the voters. There are a lot of voters like that in the electorate in New York City, but it's changing. It is changing. People are tired. People are getting fed up. And so what I want you to do is continue to pray for Sister Ingrid, pray for Mayor Adams, pray for David and Sheena and all of the Banks brothers, and everybody. Because, when you serve in government, getting legal charges and incurring legal expenses is unfortunately almost part of the process. And it's a sad part of American politics. And we've got to change that, because many people who their lives are well situated, they won't go into public service because they understand that there is a weaponization of politics, a weaponization of the legal system. And this goes on with all parties, and it's gone on forever. And I've talked to many friends who came out of public service almost broke just from the legal fees that they incurred defending themselves. It's not right, and it's unfortunately part of our system. So I wanted to say that, and I just want us to keep that in mind. We do have an election coming up next year, and we have, in my view, a very good mayor. He's had some challenges, and he's had some difficulty trying to get his agenda over. But I think when you really think about the choices, I think he's the best thing that we have going. Now, let me say this. This is a perfect example of that. For those of us who live in New York City, we're 19 days, 10 hours, and 30, 28, 27, 25 seconds away from the advent, no, not Advent season, that's already begun, but from the advent of congestion pricing. See, this is a perfect example of when you elect people like Lincoln Ressler, when you elect people like all of these progressives, they're going to, you see, these are folks that come from privilege. These are folks that know privilege. These are folks that, for them, $20, a Uber, a cab, that's nothing. Okay, that's nothing. But what about for you, the citizens? What about for you that are struggling to make ends meet with families? Now you're going to have to pay $9 to go into Manhattan. This is the first time in the history of New York City, maybe before the Brooklyn Bridge existed, when there was only a ferry, maybe there was some nominal fee. I don't know. That's a long time ago. But since the Brooklyn Bridge was built, there's never been a fee for Brooklynites to go into Manhattan. It's your city. You're just going downtown. You may have to go to jury duty. You may have to go to court. You may have to go to the Tweed building to check on your child. Now you got to pay a fee to enter into Manhattan. And watch this. Even if you live in Manhattan and you want to go from Harlem down to 65th Street, or actually below 60th Street, but down to 55th Street, if you got to pick up your child, some people will have to travel this route every day. And they've just incurred another $9 every day, daily, and twice daily to their family budget. And in 19 days, 9 hours, 57 minutes, and now 12 seconds, congestion pricing will take place in New York City. This is a progressive policy. It is a bad policy for middle class, working class people. And President Donald Trump has said he's going to try to get rid of this policy. And quite honestly, I hope he will be able to, because this is a policy, just like the way they're tearing up the streets in New York with all of these confusing bike lanes. They are making New York City a mess. It is progressives doing this. And if you continue to vote for them, they are going to turn this huge metropolis, this behemoth, this this financial capital, this global capital, the city of 8 million people. They're going to try their very best to turn it into a college town. And every idea they have, open plazas that people can walk, bike lanes, confusing bike lanes everywhere, just ensuring that an accident is more likely. All of these things taking place are construed in the minds of privileged people that went to college in Cambridge, or went to college in Poughkeepsie, or went to college in Wellesley, and now they're trying to transform a major metropolitan city where trade and commerce takes place, where time is money, and people have to move. They want to transform that into a college town so that it will be more akin to Newton, Mass, where they grew up, Edina, Michigan, and Edina, Minnesota, Birmingham, Michigan, so they can be more comfortable. They don't like the big city. They can't get across the street in New York City. So they have to pass laws that say when the pedestrian has the right of way, you got to stop or you get a ticket. I remember when I left New York City in the 90s, and I went up to Cambridge, Massachusetts. I was in school up there. I was so damn confused because as a New Yorker, I was used to getting out in the street, making my way through, okay, using my own brain, okay, using my own wit, New York wit. I could get across the street. And when I got to Cambridge and I'd walk across the damn street and people would be stopping, and I was completely blown away. Now that was 26 years ago. Do you think I would have ever thought that New York City would have traffic laws like that? And all of these things burden the traffic system, encumber the flow of traffic, and ultimately this does for them what they want, and that's to outlaw cars, outlaw fossil fuel. Now they're gonna take Ubers because they can afford to do that, but they want to put you in the petri dish of disease and germs and everything else down in the subway. And until they clean it up, that's exactly what it is. It's a petri dish of filth and all manner of indecency and madness and craziness. And if people have an option, they don't take the train. They don't take the train simply because they don't want the hassle. They don't want to be a victim of crime. They don't want to be in dirty, smelly train cars. And with all the money MTA has, I don't understand why the trains can't at least run on time and be clean. But if you continue to vote for the progressives, you're going to have to take the train. They're not going to improve the system, and you will really, really, really suffer. And what that's going to do for businesses, it's going to hurt them. Because a lot of people are just going to say, I'm not going to Manhattan. I'm not going to the city. I'm not going downtown. And it's going to destroy further the business in this city. And no one's thinking about those consequences because they're ideological. It'll make the city more pedestrian friendly, as though New Yorkers haven't known for, how old is the car? At least, 1903. I mean, when did cars appear on the streets of Manhattan? Before that, it was horse and buggy. But New Yorkers have an innate ability to get across the street. We don't need the nanny state to say that we can't get across the street unless we have pedestrian-friendly laws. And quite honestly, you can only make a bike ride in the middle of a city with cars and millions of cars and buses. You can only make it so safe. So let's be honest about that, okay? If you ride a bike in New York City, in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, where you got delivery trucks, you got people moving at a high rate of speed, you got people moving in and out of lanes, you got people trying to get somewhere in a hurry, you can only make bike riding so safe. There's an inherent risk that comes with riding a bike in New York City. And most bike riders in New York City don't wear helmets. They don't follow any particular pattern. They ride where they want to ride. They dip in, they dip out. They have music on in their ears. And so, yes, it's unfortunate, but it's almost a fact of life that every now and then somebody's going to get killed. And that's just the way it is, okay? That's just the way it is. OGZ Hunnit says, here in the Bay Area as well. I feel you. Same thing in all of these major cities. So all of these suburban people have decided to move to the city and make the city just like where they grew up. And what life was like in the city, the hell with the people that lived in the community before. We're here now, and what we want is what counts. And so, again, I'm not in politics, so I tell it like it is. That's why you got to continue to tune in to Conversations with Conrad. Tell a relative, tell a friend. I know you're listening to Charleston White. I know you're listening to a lot of different programs, and those brothers are telling the truth. I wouldn't exactly tell it the way Charleston does, but he's telling a lot of truth. But sometimes you got to tell it a little bit better because we're trying to solve problems in the Black community. We don't want to enhance problems in the Black community. And so my point is this: we need a new Black. And so help us spread the word. Conversations with Conrad. Let's get to the Shyne documentary. There is a wonderful documentary on Hulu about a wonderful man by the name of, was named now as Moses Shyne Barrow, okay? And I don't know if all of you know who he is, but he is a remarkable young man. I want to play a clip from his documentary, and I want to talk about that and a couple of other things on this afternoon. So please be patient with me. Let's get this up and let's share this. I don't know if you have Hulu or not. Everyone doesn't have Hulu, but I would recommend you even signing up for Hulu just for a trial period. Sign up for a trial and then you can cancel it. But if you sign up to listen to Shyne and watch this documentary, you will be greatly enhanced for it. Let's go. By the time I got down, raps would just come to my head. I got a call. It was like, yo, you gotta hear this. I'm Shyne. Okay, let's go back. Kid is not. All right, let's go back to the beginning. This is The Honorable Shyne, a documentary on Hulu. I'll play this for you.
Everybody that heard me
wanted to sign me. I would ride my bicycle up the Brooklyn Bridge, and by the time I got down, raps would just come to my head. I got a call. It was like, yo, you gotta hear this kid. His name is Shyne. Kid is nice.
Now tell me who won the with us. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Whoa. This is a bad beat. Everybody wanted him. Somebody called Diddy and started talking crazy. Signed into Bad Boy, I became a millionaire.
Bad Boy was very much like a family for a very long time.
At this point, I'm with Puff all the time. I go to Club New York, we hanging out.
Questioning entertainers Sean Puffy Combs and Jennifer Lopez following a shooting at a nightclub.
I had nothing to do with a shooting in this club.
Jail, every man for himself.
Puffy got acquitted and he got 10 years.
He was betrayed. I was absolutely set up to be the fall guy. One of the most difficult parts of it was watching everybody succeed, watching 50s. But I put out another album while I was there.
He got bigger.
I spent 10 years in prison, but I was able to move on.
The trajectory of Shyne after that changed.
There's a time to pivot. There's a time to transition. And that's how I got into politics. The politics just came naturally because that made me have a purpose.
That's a beautiful thing when somebody finds their true purpose in life.
This gentleman came with an aura around him, and everybody was drawn to him.
Belize first, the Belizean people first.
This story is on everybody's journey is different. Mine was 23 years. I sacrificed my career and life and family to humanity with integrity and honor.
Okay, that is a documentary that is appearing week. It's on Hulu, and I would really that you check it out. It is a great documentary. Tells the story of a remarkable young man I met in 2001. One of my favorite people in the world is a woman by the name of Jamie Foster Brown. For those of you in the entertainment industry, or those of you that know about the entertainment industry, you'll know that Jamie Brown was sort of like a mother to all of the celebrities, all of the people who were around New York City in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Jamie and her wonderful late husband, Lorenzo and their sons had a wonderful publication, I think it still exists online, called Sister to Sister Magazine. And the funny thing is, Jamie Brown, maybe you can call it a gossip magazine. I don't think it's a gossip magazine, but Flo Anthony, my cousin, and Jamie, they kind of know everything that's going on. And even though they know everything that's going on, people love Flo and Jamie, and they will tell them anything because they know that in spite of them having the magazines where they know all what's going on, they also are very wonderful people, very discreet. And Jamie had that role. She was like a godmother. She was like an auntie. She was like a friend. And everybody trusted her. And she had often come to, at the time I was the head of Mosque number 7, and she would come to the mosque, and she liked the ministry that we were doing. And there were a number of beefs and things that we were able to resolve, and we would have a celebration, and Jamie would always come. And so Jamie directed me to set up the first meeting with Suge Knight and myself. And one day in 2001, I got a call from her. She said, "Minister, I want you to go down and stand with Shyne. You need to get down there, Minister. You need to get down there." So when Jamie asked me to do something, I would go. And I went down to the court there on Center Street in Manhattan. And that's where I met the brother Shyne. Now, Shyne was an up-and-coming Brooklyn rapper. You got to get the story because it's a fascinating story. His background in Belize, all of it's very, very interesting. But when I met him, he was about 19 years old. I was 38. And one of the things that he did when we met, hey, Jamie sent me. I'm here. If you need help, brother, I'm here with you. I'm here to stand with you. And of course, we hit it off. He told me sort of what was going on, what he was facing. It was very evident that the Sean P. Diddy Combs camp and his camp were separate. If you remember at the time, he had gone out with Anthony Wolf Jones, Jennifer Lopez, and Diddy. And that particular night, if you remember, some gunfire rang out, and Shyne was ultimately arrested. And it was decided that he had performed the shooting. A young lady was shot in the face, and that picture is during the trial. I would meet him every day at the trial, go to lunch and spend time together in fellowship. But when I got to him, he was in trouble. He was in trouble because in many ways, the Diddy camp was sort of focused on Diddy, Brother Wolf, and he was sort of the scapegoat. I mean, the tension was palpable when I would go there. They were on one side, he was on the other. And he had a good relationship with Brother Wolf, and Wolf was a great brother. His parents were very nice people. I mean, if you met Wolf's family, you would have thought they were Ward and Miss Cleaver. I mean, he had the best family in the world. So, but it was just that kind of tension and those kind of dynamics. But I said I was going to stand with this young brother because he was only 19. If you look at this picture, again, I'm 38 years old in this picture. He's 19. Young Brooklyn brother. He's on trial now. And for those of you around the country, you don't understand. But in New York, we have gun laws. You can't just walk the streets in New York with a gun. You don't shoot anybody, but you get caught with a gun, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to jail. And so this brother was no doubt facing going to jail. And I couldn't help him on the legal front. He had a great lawyer, Ian Niles, and he had his other lawyer. His name skips my mind at the time, but he had a separate legal team from Diddy. That was not my role. My role was there to be a friend and a brother and to just sort of spiritually keep him uplifted and also to bring public attention to the fact that here was a 19-year-old whose parents had just given him over to a major executive. And it said to that executive, hey, it's like anyone else. You take your child to a college, a university, you take your child, you sign them up for a gymnastics program, or you take your child to a farm club and a professional baseball team, hockey team. Whenever you have a prodigious child that's good at what they do, you take them to the conservatory. This is my baby. He's a genius on the piano, but he's my child. You got to look out for him, Juilliard. You got to have some structure, some framework. This young man is a minor, and you have some obligation to this person. And the greats among the Black music executives in the past, and principally what comes to mind is Berry Gordy. He just celebrated his 95th birthday. 95th birthday, okay? And Berry Gordy set the model. He put together at Motown an assembly line of production, of writing, of recording, But beyond that, he took young people like little Diana Ross from the Brewster X, and he showed her, hey, I'm going to take you around the world. I'm going to help you get around the world. I'm going to make sure that you travel and see the world. I want to make sure that you know how to carry yourself, that you know how to speak, that you know how to do an interview. Okay, that was his responsibility. That was his obligation. That's what he said he would do for the Supremes. And he did that, okay? I know some of you had trouble seeing the picture. I hope you can see it now. If you can see it, let me know, all right? If you can see it, please let me know. Can you see the picture now? Tony says, can't see, sir, but hopefully you can see now. But that's the obligation. That's the job of a music mogul. And certainly Shyne's mom and grandmother had a basic right to believe that when they put this young man in P. Diddy's hands, that there was a basic agreement and contract with this family that we will take care of this young man, okay? That's more than reasonable, okay? And when, of course, we see now that Usher was sent to him and other youngsters, and you can only hope that at some point, he was young then, but he was older than them. You would think at some point he would have had the ability, the presence of mind to say, I've got some responsibility to these young people. And when I went down there and I saw Shyne in that condition, young man looking at 10 years in jail, had just signed a contract, just become a millionaire. All of his family's dreams, an immigrant family, their dreams were just about to come true when he gets involved in this shooting. And I didn't like it. Obviously, Jamie knew what was going on. And when I got there, it was very evident what was happening. Well, I couldn't stop that. I tried the best that I could to bring attention to this case. Peter Noel at the Village Voice wrote some great articles about how Shyne was being left out to dry. But in fact, the fix was in. Diddy had Johnny Cochran. He had Ben Braffman. Murray Richmond was the other attorney. Ian Niles and Murray Richmond were Shyne's attorneys. And unfortunately, the fix was in and Shyne would be convicted. Now, when I first met him, I thought, well, at least let me try to put something on this young brother's head. Because when I met him, young guy, 19, as I said, represented Brooklyn, had that Brooklyn swag, Brooklyn attitude. And at the time, I was leading an organization called a Movement for Change, and we were involved in a campaign for dignity. That's why I want Charleston White and some of these young people to understand that those of you that are talking about rappers and drill rappers and gangster rappers, it's great. I'm glad someone continues to call attention to it. There's a brother in Gary, Indiana, brother Jijaga. He has continued, Geronimo Pratt's nephew. His name escapes me right now. It'll come back to me. He's continued to raise the issue of Chicago radio stations that have been promoting death and violence, okay? Others are doing it. But don't forget those of us who did it 25 and 30 years ago. Don't forget C. Dolores Tucker, Charleston White. If you don't know about C. Dolores Tucker, you should learn about her, okay? It'll give you context. Don't forget about the great Reverend Dr. Calvin Otis Butts, who steamrolled gangster rap records to help foster this conversation. Don't forget people like the great Percy Ellis Sutton, who said on his radio station, I ain't gonna play this stuff. Don't forget Minister Louis Farrakhan that met with these rappers and said to them time and time again and sent many of us out as emissaries to them. Don't forget Khalid Muhammad. You know, one of the sad things about hip hop and all of this celebration, 50 years of hip hop, all of this celebration, but it's been a whitewashing of hip hop in terms of the politics of the hip hop community, because I haven't seen one example of them recognizing the role the nation played in steering and guiding young people in the hip hop community when none of the national leaders were even interested in hip hop or had any relationship with them. I mean, Dr. Butts, C. Dolores Tucker, they came out against gangster rap, and they were right. I stood behind both of them, but none of them had the relationship with rappers that the nation did. And that's just a fact of history. See, I know the nation's controversial and all of that, but you can't rewrite history, okay? None of the leaders today that quote rap, that come around hip hop, I see they've got a museum, and I see all these politicians around the museum, but none of those politicians were around when rappers needed direction, when they were killing each other, when they needed personal direction and family direction and all the things that took place to help the hip hop community. It's as though it didn't even happen, because in many ways it's not politically correct. And that's sad, because I teach the hip hop, the history of the hip hop nation. I teach the history of hip hop from Robert Moses, the great builder and urban planner. I teach hip hop from Robert Moses to the election of Barack Obama. And I look at the major trends of hip hop, starting with Moses's destruction of neighborhoods in New York City that gave rise to terrible conditions in the 60s and 70s that ultimately gave rise to hip hop, all the way to hip hop evolving, growing, maturing, and becoming a political force for the first time in American life. The hip hop nation, the hip hop generation became a political force. And you remember in those days, I took after my mentor, the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, who had said in 1984 campaign that hands that once picked cotton would one day pick a president. And I said hands that once scratched turntables would one day pick a president, because it was evident to me that the business community saw it. Hip hop was a major force. The marketing community, they saw it. Okay, hip hop is a major force in marketing and selling products. The fashion world saw it. Hip hop is a juggernaut. We gotta partner with them. We gotta come together with them. But nobody saw it in the political realm before me. Okay, and in a movement for change in Harlem, people like William Allen and my brother, Reverend Shannon Jones in Atlanta, Georgia, City Councilman Yusef Salaam, and we traveled the country. I was in Detroit with Mayor, at the time, he was State Senator Kwame Kilpatrick. And I said to him and to others that if we talk about the hood, if we are concerned about the hood, we ought to run for office and get control of the hood. He would go on to become the nation's first hip hop mayor. Jesse Jackson Jr., Cory Booker, all of these people were under the sway and influence to some extent of the call that we made in Harlem to say, now is our time, the hip hop generation's time to pick a president. And that would come to fruition in 2008 because the Obama coalition is really a hip hop coalition. A major portion of the Obama coalition is that hip hop coalition. Now, that's another story. We'll get to that another time. But I remember the first time I met Shyne. I gave him a copy of Marvin Gaye's album. I love Marvin Gaye. We are graduates of the same high school. My father played Marvin Gaye all the time. And I gave him a copy of the What's Going On album because I knew that this young brother out of Brooklyn had no clue. Same with Sexy Red. Same with Glorilla and all of these contemporary artists. They have no understanding of the power they have when they have behind a microphone to transform lives. They also have no understanding of the damage that they're doing. You see, when you see Snoop grow up to become this exemplary father as he is today, when you see a lot of these rappers, they're exemplary fathers now. They're great men in the community, coaching football and doing all these things. But when they were younger and they held a mic, they promoted things that destroyed the community. Now, you can forgive a man in ignorance for what he does, okay? If you never left Long Beach and Compton and South Central, that's all you knew. You didn't know that people didn't wear khakis and Croker sacks and Pendleton shirts everywhere, okay? That's all they knew, gang culture, etc. But what happens too much in our community is by the time you grow up, you've done a lot of damage. In Philadelphia, there was a wonderful movement there called the OBH movement. A.R. Ab, great rapper. These brothers came from the community, Muslim brothers, and they were trying to build a music company. But between criminal activity and music and the perception in hip hop that in order to really be real, you've got to have an authenticity and criminality about you. And that's what's really sad about the industry. That for young artists to believe that after they leave the studio, and rap is called, okay? It's a rap, that they have to continue to act in that vein. Al Pacino I'm sure he didn't feel any pressure to continue to act like Scarface. I'm sure that he didn't feel any pressure in his daily life and decisions and moves he made to continue to be as treacherous, vicious, and as bloodthirsty as Michael Corleone. And yet our young artists are being made to feel that they have to act and be ontologically the very cruel, cold-blooded killers that they project themselves to be in their art. And the consequences are people dying. You know, I share this with my class at City College. When Tupac and Biggie died, it shocked hip hop. It shocked the hip hop community. They died 6 months apart. Okay, it was a shock. It was a collective gut punch to the hip hop community. You know, over 100 rappers have died since then, and invariably, weekly, monthly, some young up-and-coming rapper is dying, whether it's in Memphis or Philadelphia, Chicago, or they're catching cases. Young Dirk, he's facing murder for hire charges. A.R. Ab got 45 years. And the question is, why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Why do we keep acting out these roles? And I mean, listen, this is what I've been concerned about for 26 years, that much of what we encounter are unforced errors. And that's why I say to people that want to obsess over Trump and act like Donald Trump is some existential threat, again, to borrow a big word from some of these big-time professors. No, what's an existential threat to the Black community is the ignorance of Negroes in the community that continue to kill each other and continue to think that they can commit crimes and get away with it. We just had a shooting the other day in New York where a young man walked up to an executive and shot him in the back in cold blood. And some of these foolish progressives, you following progressives, they are celebrating this man that committed a cold-blooded act of murder, acting as though he's Jesse James or acting as though he's John Dillinger. This is a privileged young man that grew up in the lap of luxury, and more than likely, he's probably very mentally ill, which, again, a lot of this postmodernism and progressivism, this false idea, this is actually a Marxist idea, that you can create some perfect society. The Marxists have never been able to create a perfect society. All they do is critique what exists, but they never have been able to create an alternative. And so if you're a young person living in the wealthiest country in the world, where there's literally more opportunity for any person in the world to have uplift, to go from one generation in abject poverty in Marcy projects to become the 1%, as Jay-Z did. You have a greater chance of doing that in America than anywhere else in the world. That's why millions of people, immigrants, are coming here. They're not coming here because there's no opportunity here. They're coming because they know that where they come from, opportunities are limited. And if I can just get to America, while the young people in America do not appreciate, do not see. Listen, capitalism is not the enemy of people. Okay, there's crony capitalism, exploitive capitalism. But my point is this: don't say you're against capitalism. When you controlled the drugs in a section of town, that was capitalism. But why didn't you just say, not gonna sell drugs, because Biden will put me in jail for 30 or 40 years. Let's corner the market on the bodegas. Let's corner the market on the hair care products. Right now, most Black hair care products are in the hands of people outside of our community. Why didn't Rayful? Why didn't some of the big drug dealers, Alpo and others, I ministered to him too. Why didn't they say, you know what, we're going to corner the market on hair care products? You know, Black people use hair care products just as much as they use crack, probably even more, okay? Why didn't we do that? We could have done that, and we could have, and we can still do it. That's the great opportunity of capitalism. If you sell a great hamburger, great ham sandwich, oh, I hope you don't sell a ham sandwich, but my point is, that's capitalism. But you have young people today with all of these opportunities, and they're being told that this is the worst place in the world to live. And this young man who grew up in the lap of luxury, probably on the internet, okay, probably living in a silo. Oh, I got to tune in, turn on the TV. Rachel Maddow's coming on. She's going to tell me how bad things are. Ooh, Joy Reid comes on. I'm going to sit up under her for 2 hours and see how bad things are. And you keep ingesting all of that stuff. And so, pardon me, sooner or later, your mind snaps. And this young man's mind did. And I told people the moment he shot him, oh, they're going to catch him in a minute. You kill somebody in Midtown Manhattan, they got you, brother. Let me tell you something. There are cameras everywhere. And no, if you steal a roll of toilet paper, they're not going to expend the resources, okay? But if you commit murder, you're to jail today. You're not getting away with crime. And that's the one thing we got to help young brothers to understand, that you can't get away with criminal activity. So in addition to it being immoral, which of course it is, rob, steal, kill, it's just immoral. Well, he was the head of an insurance company. You know what? When I see Black people that are applauding the death of this, ironically, He was born poor, the insurance executive that worked himself up. The killer was born rich, that worked himself down. But there used to be a time when black folks wouldn't be that foolish. And when I hear black folks celebrating the death of this man because we don't like insurance companies, and I mean, I don't argue with you about that at all, but we knew that killing people, shooting a man in cold blood was not right. But when you sit up under progressives, Marxists, their whole idea is take from those who have, even if you have to kill them. And that's an immoral idea. That's an immoral concept, especially in our context. Again, I'm not mad at Fidel Castro for overthrowing Batista and the American gangsters that were exploiting the people of Cuba. I'm not mad at the Bolsheviks. I'm not mad at them because the Tsar sat on a throne and felt that he had some God-given right to rule over them, and they overthrew him. I'm not mad at them. But what does that have to do with in a free society where a man worked his way up in a company, in an industry that you don't like? See, you're listening to foolishness and you're taking on the values of rich whites that were privileged, liberal, whose mothers and fathers never told them no, and an entitlement, and it's taking over so many people in our communities, taking over Black men, it's taking over Black women, and we're getting further and further and further away from the values of the people that shaped us, raised us, taught us right from wrong. And that's the thing that we got to get back to, my brothers and sisters. We got to come off of this mess. We got to come off of this stuff. And so I was saying to Shyne, look, brother, you don't need to be in a studio talking about selling drugs, talking about shooting somebody. You don't need to do that. You are intelligent. He was a handsome young man, smart young man, had a good mother, good grandmother. His mother wasn't even interested in him being a rapper. She just wanted him to go to college because the truth of the matter is, I found out later that he came from a political family. Both his mother's people and his father's people were involved in politics in the country of Belize. And his dad was at the time the deputy prime minister. He became the prime minister, but he was the child of an outside relationship. And so he suffered, he was hurt by that. He had sort of grown up in Brooklyn, away from his family with his single mother and grandmother. And of course, that made a great difference in his life. And he was under this influence. So I gave him that Marvin Gaye album. And, I had hoped that it would make an impact. I didn't know how it would. But when he got convicted, when he was convicted that day, the whole courtroom just left. Everybody was happy. Puffy and Wolf had been exonerated, and the throng of people just sort of left. And the jubilation that took place outside and the celebration, and they took Shyne into the lockup cell. And because I was a minister there, I was able to go into his cell, and my little brother his jacket was off now, and he had a white shirt on. They had almost like a steel circle in the wall there in the tombs, and they had him handcuffed to that structure, and he was handcuffed. And I took his rings and jewelry, and I said, brother, just hang in there. And we had prayer, and I took his jewelry to his mom, and of course they were broken and crushed. And I would see him a few more times on Rikers Island. I used to go out. In fact, I used to take my children. My son Conrad reminded me the other day. I took them because I wanted to see them understand the price that one would pay in this society. I've always wanted them to see what the movement was about, what injustice was about, what we were struggling against, and also to understand that there are consequences for their actions. And I would go with Reverend William James, the great minister from Harlem. He was about 90 years old. Reverend James and I would go out to Rikers Island. And Reverend James hadn't been to Rikers Island in a long time, but he was a great man for urban youth in the 40s and 50s. Claude Brown, who wrote the great book Man Child in the Promised Land, wrote about Reverend James. And so my point was, I didn't know, but every time I tried to share with this young brother what he had the potential to become. But after he got convicted, I went off. I called a conference immediately, and I said to the Movement for Change folks, we're going to call the executives to account because they have used these young people. They've put these young people in a position where their lives are going to be destroyed. They're making millions of dollars off of the suffering of these fans. Biggie, an artist killed under his watch. And now Shyne was going to jail. And so I'm saying, wait a minute, what's going on? I mean, you got to start taking some responsibility for what's happening with these artists. And little did I know that Diddy wasn't really the godfather. The godfather was Russell Simmons. See, he was the godfather. Andre Harrell, Russell Simmons, Diddy, and all the rest underneath them. But the godfather was Russell, at least politically. He thought he was a tough guy. And so when I came out and said to the executives, we're going to have a conference. You all have to come. I summoned them. Said, we got to talk about what you're doing with young people. I had the right to do that. When their butts were in trouble, they called me. When Biggie got killed, Russell Simmons was the first person that called me and said, Minister, we got to do something. When Tupac was killed, they called me. And quite frankly, Diddy and Biggie were supposed to come to the reconciliation, and he called me and said, I can't come. You got to get us out of this. I said, why? I mean, the man just got killed. What do you mean I got to get you out? You need to be here. You and Biggie, front and center. It's messing up my deal. It's messing up my deal. I don't know what the deal was. I later found out the deal. It was that big deal that he got with Bad Boy. I'm almost finished. My point is simply this. All I wanted to do was have a brotherly conversation. I had been there with you. I'd been your brother. And boy, they start calling me Q-Tip, Fat Joe, and many other rappers. KRS-One, he stood with me solid as a rock. And they said, Russell is saying to anybody, if they get it, they're finished. And that's when I took him to task. And I said, you know, Russell, you are out in the Hamptons with the good liberals, with the good society folks, and you are like the Pied Piper of madness, sowing seeds of destruction in the Black community, defending people that are doing it, trying to silence people. And Diddy was right there with him. I remember later we were talking about some support for my organization, which was geared toward helping young people in the hip hop community. He said, well, you shouldn't have come against my man. Okay. Well, I'll live with that. I'll live with the position that I took then. That if you are an executive and these young people are put in your care, teach them something, protect their lives, protect their careers. You'll make money longer, and more importantly, they and their families will prosper. What sense does it make to produce a Tupac and then have him die and Biggie both die within 6 months of each other, like two common street thugs, drive-by shootings? What sense did that make? I don't know if people had insurance policies, but as far as I'm concerned, I can't see in any way where that made financial sense to anybody, not the families, certainly not the victims, nor the record companies, unless there's some sinister thing happening where they prospered and benefited from the death of these artists. But that's what we're dealing with in the Black community. And it's been going on for a long time. I don't know who benefits from Young Dirk being in this position, or A.R. Ab. And I don't know how many young brothers right now on the streets of Philly, on the streets of Chicago, that haven't learned the lesson. The lessons are here. I watched the videotape where the young brothers left O Block and traveled downtown in Chicago. I always get confused with Chicago. It's not traveling downtown. When you leave the South Side and you go to what we consider downtown, you're actually traveling north. I watched the video. They had the video, or they were able to reconstruct their travel. They had them coming down the stairs in the apartments in O Block and getting in the cars, and they trailed them all the way down to Rush Street. And they had video of them shooting, and they saw them get back in the cars, and they followed them all the way back to O Block. It doesn't make sense. You can't commit crimes today. Use the money you have. Use the hustling ability. Take over the hair products business. Do like Mr. Johnson did in Chicago. Get the bodegas. Get the barbecue restaurants. Get something. But let's stop committing crimes. It'll make our society better. You'll live longer. You'll be freer. You'll not be doing something that simply doesn't make sense. Ill-gotten gain. Ill-gotten gain. That's something that we have to teach young Black men. I'm going to read a little bit of something that I shared with Brother Alpo before he died. Alpo, I met in Harlem, I guess about 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't know him before he went away. I didn't meet him. We were on the streets at the same time. He was in D.C., though, for the most part, when I was in Harlem. And he certainly knew people I knew in D.C., and I talked about that when I met him. So I missed him here, and he missed me. But when he came home, I had a chance to meet him, and we met several times. And I shared something with you that with him that I want to share with you as I move toward my conclusion. This is something that I wrote in the Positive Community magazine in 2021. And I want to share this with you because this is really the message. And Charleston White, I understand what you're trying to do, but let's try to do it like this, okay? People think that they are smarter, slicker, or they know things that older people don't know. And there's nothing new under the sun. Even the Bible, okay, whether you believe it or not, it has wisdom for you that you would not believe. And I want to read a little bit of this. This is taken from Proverbs 1:10-18. My son, If sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lay and wait for blood. Let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave and whole. And those that go down into the pit, we shall find all precious substances. That's what they tell you when they say, come on with me and hustle. Come on with me and join my stick-up crew. Come on, join this gang. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path, for their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. Surely in vain the net is spread in sight of any bird. And you know, that's what every young black man should be thinking about the criminal justice system. It's like a net, a trap that they're setting up right in front of you, okay? You're the bird. You got to have sense enough to understand that they're trying to get you in the trap. And you've got to say, oh no, I see that. That's a trap. Oh, they killed Quando Rondo, or we got beef with him. Okay, let's get them back. That's a trap, baby. Oh, we're gonna hustle and put this thing together, and I'm gonna move this H, and I got a supplier or the plug. And see, when you start talking like that, the trap is being spread right in front of you, and you're walking right into it. I wish this message would be drilled into the heads of young boys, young black boys in Harlem, Newark, Bedford-Stuyvesant, East Orange, East Oakland, the south side of Chicago, north side of St. Louis, Detroit. It doesn't matter. Let's spread the word. And other cities throughout the nation, our youth are getting a different message in shows like Power and BMF. And I just don't understand why we glamorize the criminal. Why is it so fascinating to Black people? I respect the family structure of BMF and this wonderful young son that has made a way now for his father to come out. And that's a beautiful story. I mean, hey, you get lemons, you make lemonade out of it. I get it. But what is the fascination, Black people, with killing each other? Black men in particular, guns and violence. Have we not seen where it leads? I mean, if we had some examples of where it doesn't lead to that, then I can understand the fascination. I mean, listen, you watch a movie, The Godfather or Scarface, even in those, the outcome is pretty predictable. But listen, Big Meech did 20-something years in jail. Alpo did 20-something years in jail. I mean, Rayful Edmonds just got out of jail. You're talking about 30 years. Tony Lewis. I mean, the list goes on. Mike Concepcion. These brothers paid the price so you don't have to go that way. But crime leads to jail, if not death. Let me go on just a little bit more. I got to know former Harlem drug dealer Albert Alpo Martinez, and I ministered to him. His death recently caused me to recall my interaction with him. I did not know Alpo well, But I had several meetings with him in the past, and we talked. And my message to him was simple. You served your time, your debt to society. But the community needs to see contrition, humility, and a transformed man, demonstrably different, truly remorseful for the pain, hurt, and misery your actions have caused. He always listened respectfully, but I consistently got the sense that he saw it differently. He had done what he had done in his life, and he had to stand firmly on that belief for him. He was still Alpo and still the man. I wish I could have internalized the message of Proverbs in his childhood, or even as a middle-aged man. I wish I could have got to him. After 25 years in prison, he took responsibility for 14 murders, including the murder of his closest friend and associate, Rich Porter. Turned state's evidence against his associate and trigger man, another high school mate of mine. We go at the same time at Woodrow Wilson High School, Wayne Silk Perry, who sits in a max prison serving a life sentence without any possibility of parole based on Martinez's testimony. Some say Perry has become a changed man. I believe he has. Spiritual brother, now known as Brother Nkosi. One night having dinner in Harlem with Alpo, having dinner in Harlem, a friend of Alpo's approached me and asked if he could bring him over to meet and take a picture with me. I was conflicted. At the very least, I was reluctant and somewhat uncomfortable. He had a reputation of murder and treachery, and I knew of his association with Wayne Silk Perry, and I was concerned. But I realized in that moment that I had a duty to this brother, not to negate his humanity, not to see him merely as a drug dealer, murderer, or snitch, but a child of God who's entitled to hear the good news. The gospel is a powerful bulwark, and it is for everyone. Jesus, nailed to the cross at Calvary, ministered to two murderers, even as he shared their fate. One asked for forgiveness, and he reassured that man that he would be in glory with him that same day. I'm not so sure that was in Alpo Martinez's heart. He did acknowledge faith in his upbringing in the Catholic Church. Perhaps he repented and truly accepted the Lord as his Savior and friend. I never suffered at the hands of Alpo Martinez, so I can't judge Rich Porter's sister Pat and family for celebrating after he was killed. I also get the anger of those he betrayed. And obviously, the killers had no compassion in their heart for him. But ministers must minister to those who have lost their way. Finally, that's why every Black boy should learn and memorize Proverbs 1:10-18 by rote as a cautionary tale. The fruits of wrongdoing will lead to the fate of Mr. Martinez and too many others. The Bible says it plainly. Alpo did not say to me that I'm only 25 years old and a drug kingpin on the streets of Harlem and Chocolate City when he was arrested in 1991. He did say this to me. He never thought that 30 years later, the community would lionize and celebrate his exploits. Perhaps his ignominious death can have a greater impact upon the psyche of Black people in our community, especially young Black men, to turn away from sinful and criminal lives than that celebrated exploits of his ultimate death. And I guess I'm closing now because, see, I think this is really important. Charleston White, I hear what you're doing. And I know you said it, and I believe it. You said, I've given Black people a character. Here's a man that said, and I know what he's talking about. He said, I've worked as an activist in the community. People never paid attention to me. Okay. Okay. He said, now I'm giving them a character, and they are paying attention to me. And I hope it is effective, because by hook or crook, we got to do two things. This is also a part of this new black that I'm developing, this new black thought. We got to stop lionizing, admiring, celebrating criminal macho culture. Okay. I'd rather, if you know, hey, we're macho men. I'd rather you study some war books and war documentaries and celebrate some of the great soldiers in history. If you just got to get your macho on, I get it. But stop looking up to the mafia and stop thinking about criminal activity. That's played out. They got cameras today. Any crime you commit, you're going to jail. Not to be forewarned, is to be forearmed. And so let's move away from that. I hope that Brother Akbar Prey, who just got out of jail in New Jersey, I mean, what I'm saying is, you know, yes, you celebrate these men made mistakes. They've now paid their debt to society, which is important. And they should be allowed to return back into society and make a great contribution. But what we should not do is celebrate criminal exploits, because if you celebrate criminal exploits and you ignore the fact that Alpo Martinez, who was responsible for 14 murders, told on people who got life sentences, spent 27 years in jail, and ultimately was gunned down in the streets. See, you that are celebrating Alpo, talking about Poe had this car, Poe had that car. You are talking about a few years when he had some cars, and you're completely leaving out all of the suffering and misery and ultimately an ignominious death. Why do you do that to young people? They don't have the sense to make that evaluation. We got to start making it for them, okay? And so I'll leave you with this. Shyne served his time. He got all of that stuff out of his system, okay? He did hard time, New York State prison system. He came out, tried to rap again, but that part of his life was over. He got serious about his faith. He had been, again, convicted, sentenced, served his time. And because he was a citizen of Belize, he was deported. He could not come back to his Brooklyn. And so he had to go home. He had to go to his childhood home in Belize. God touched his life. He went to Israel and secured and strengthened his faith. And he came back to Belize with a sense of purpose. And now he's in politics. He's the opposition leader. You know, we have two parties now. The Democrats are the opposition party. The Republicans are the party in power. He's the leader of the opposition party, poised and on the precipice of becoming the next prime minister. After all that pain, after all that suffering, after all that betrayal, the prayers of his mother and grandmother, and the quite frankly, the prayers of our ancestors for all of our young people are now beginning to pay off in his life in a demonstrable way. It's a great story. Get Hulu. Even if you just sign up for a moment, watch it and then cancel. Let your children see this story. Because one thing Black folks have to do is we got to learn that even when you're down, you got to keep pushing, keep fighting, keep struggling. Don't let anyone take your joy. The world didn't give it to you. Don't let the world take it away. And God will always open up a door. Now, lastly, I remember when Diddy and Russell were almost like gods to the people in the industry. I remember the palpable fear in people who had been my friends when, quote unquote, Russell had turned on me. I remember he tried to outflank me. He knew what I was doing and trying to call the industry together, and he decided he would deny me the opportunity of gathering people. And he said, if you go to that summit, you're through. He said, indeed, I'm having a summit. Don't go over there with Conrad. He called me Bob Dole, a Republican from Kansas who had said some uncharitable things about pop. And he called me C. Dolores Tucker, for which I was proud, baby. Yeah, I stand with C. Dolores Tucker, a civil rights activist who said we were called B's and H's in the 60s, and I'm not going to stand by. I stand with the mother. He said, but don't go to his, come to mine. And I'm inviting Minister Louis Farrakhan. See, that was what he considered a checkmate. He considered that a checkmate. Well, first of all, I knew so much about Russell Simmons. You heard about these charges that have been leveled against him. I knew about those charges. In fact, one young lady begged me not to bring those things up, and I didn't, okay? I did not bring those up in my critique of Russell, because I wasn't intending to hurt either of them, Diddy or Russell. I was simply saying to them, you got to take more responsibility, especially Diddy, because a lot of death, starting at City College, 9 young people, Sonia Williams, family friend, dear family friend, died at City College in 91, and then Biggie, and then Tupac. And all I wanted them to do was, let's come together as brothers. But they wouldn't do that. Oh no, who are you? Well, I'm just a brother. I'm just saying, you're going down the wrong road. Please stop. Well, to make a long story short, he had a conference there in Midtown Manhattan. He brought Minister Louis Farrakhan for his keynote speaker. And let me just say this: I showed up at the convention, had my convention in Harlem. It went well, and I showed up at Russell's, and I had been told that I could not come in. This brother put an APB out and said, no matter what, Conrad cannot come in. Well, God is good. Because guess who came down the street? I mean, the FOI were there, and some of the good brothers, they were on post, and that, of course, was their instruction. And I kind of jabbed at him, and I said, brother, you would stand in the schoolhouse door and deny your own brother an opportunity to come in and hear what the minister's saying to youth, to rappers? And then I eased up on the brother because I knew what was going on. But right then, Chuck D and Public Enemy came, and they snuck me in. And it seemed like as soon as I got in the building, I sat down for 5 minutes. And the minister was saying, I know Conrad. He's my former student. And I know he means well for Black people. And hard-hitting Harry, PR man, he stood up and said, here he is, he's here. And the minister asked me to stand up, and he addressed both Russell and myself, and he asked us if we would work together to try to lift up Black people. And I leave you saying I was open to that. But I think what's really happening with some of these Hollywood types. And that's why in the New Black Thought, we've got to stop worshiping Hollywood people. Greg McCree, good to see you. High Power, good to see you. I'll tell you lastly what monster Biden pardoned if you missed the first beginning of the show. But part of the New Black is we got to stop worshiping Hollywood because all these strongholds are being torn down. Just think of all the people that you worshiped in the last 30 years in pop and entertainment culture who are now either dead or in jail. Harvey Weinstein, at one point, he could make people fawn and do all kinds of things just at his command because he had money and people wanted access. Jeffrey Epstein, same thing. They're both dead. Look at how many people allowed Diddy and Russell to humiliate them. And now they can't control harm nor benefit for themselves. And what I'm saying to you, lastly, Black folks, is that if God be for you, nobody can be against you. They thought Shyne was dead and finished, and he could have been. But he tapped into his relationship with God, and he began to use his voice instead of talking about dealing drugs and shooting somebody, and began serving humanity. Because only what you do for God will last. The only thing that lasts. It's not your money. It's not your power. That's why there's not a politician in the world that I'm intimidated by or will bow down in front of. Because guess what? Your power comes from your office. When you lose that, if you have not invested in people and done good beyond an office, those same people that fawned at your feet won't even say hello to you. And so we bow down and worship God only. We don't worship men. We don't worship women. Our values don't come from Hollywood. They shouldn't. Our values come from our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our parents, our churches, our mosque, our community, the people who raised us and sowed into our lives. Don't ever forget them because they're more important and more valuable in your life than Puffy or Russell Simmons or any of these big shots, because I guarantee you that every one of them are on their knees now, remembering the lessons that somebody taught them along the way that they forgot. That's it for today. High Power, you joined us late. And at the beginning of the show, I talked about Joe Biden pardoning a corrupt judge in Pennsylvania that was selling young people to the private prison industry and got a kickback. You got to go to the beginning of the show to get that. EP says, Minister, I bore the brunt of that Shyne issue on the street. And he came home and followed my example. Well, Brother EP, I want to learn more about that because that sounds very, very interesting, my brother. God bless you in all that you do. And tune in later on this week, another edition of Conversations with Conrad. Tell a relative, tell a friend, like, share, let them know that there's a new show that's on TV, YouTube, that gives a different perspective and is waking up Black folks and giving Black folks something to look at other than Joy Reid and that bully Roland Martin. I'd love for him to try to bully me, but he won't do that. He knows better. Where will the stock market be in 2025? We'll have to get to that later. I'm finished for the day. God bless you. God keep you. And I'll see you real soon. Am I Boulay? No, I'm not. All right. Have a good evening.